So the brand value falling by about 15%, it surely could be even more than that.
May not be that bad. I would say that the fact that the IPL, the tournament is going through in this tough times itself is a very, very positive for the league. Yes, there has been some, I would say, negatives. For example, the title sponsor actually pulled out. Vivo was the title sponsor, and they pulled out, and then we have actually Dream 11, which has replaced Vivo at half the price that Vivo used to pay. So there are a couple of negatives. Yes, no crowds in the stadium is also a negative. But then the fact that BCCI, the Indian Cricket Board, was able to find a sponsor in the last 30 days was amazing in these tough times. So from that perspective, I would say it's not all negatives. There are positives. The viewership is expected to be significantly higher this time, considering the fact that there is not much content out there. No sports, a lot of sports tournaments are cancelled. And people are all at home, no travel, no other entertainment options. So more viewership, and more viewership would mean more advertisement and more broadcaster revenue. So there are certain positives as well. So it may not be all that negative.
Okay, Santosh, what impact does a lack of people in the stadiums and the fact it's being played out of the UAE, it's not even in India itself, these things must conspire together to make it very difficult for you to attract, for people to be attracted to advertise there. And on top of that, you had a lot of Chinese mobile phone companies which used to sponsor the IPL, but because of these frictions between New Delhi and Beijing, they're not there anymore. So what impact does those tensions play onto the bottom line here?
So yeah, no crowds in the stadium is actually, from the numbers perspective, from the value perspective, would not be such a big negative because the ticket collection, the in-stadia revenue is not very material. So from that perspective, on the numbers, bottom line, it would not have a significant impact. It would have a smaller impact. But then, yes, sentiment-wise, no crowds means less enthusiasm. I mean, actually, the playing team would need people actually backing them. So that would be missing. So it is more from enthusiasm perspective more than commercial aspects that would be a negative without crowds in the stadium. But yes, actually, some of these mobile phone companies, which are mostly Chinese, who are big, I would say, big spenders when it comes to advertisements, sponsorships. So they actually staying on sidelines is definitely a negative. But then there are alternatives. I mean, there are other digital companies, there are other telecom companies, there are consumer companies which are doing pretty well during this pandemic, and they would all come to the fore, and they would be actually a good replacement to these Chinese mobile phone companies.
Will there be a long-term impact on the pullout from Chinese advertisers? I mean, we talked about Vivo Mobile. Is it a pause for them, or do you see a long-term implication here?
So yeah, as we stand today, nobody knows whether it's just a pause and they would come back next year, or would that not happen? Nobody knows. And if everything goes on fine, and if COVID is under control, the next 2021 edition is actually within 6 months. So there is a possibility that they might actually not be able to come back the next year in the 6 months. But then would they come back post that? Nobody knows, and it all depends on the circumstances and situation at that point in time. But then, yes, there are enough consumer and digital companies which actually have commercial reasons to actually be associated with a property like IPL. I mean, 2-3 large companies going out doesn't mean that things would be bad. I mean, there are enough Indian companies and enough other global companies which are outside China, which would actually be happy to invest and be ready to invest in with this property. So yeah, I mean, nobody knows today whether Vivo's pulling out is just a temporary temporary one, or would it have a long-lasting impact? As we stand today, not sure.